Back here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, 215-204-9449 is the number. We'll go up to Pittsburgh right now and 93.7 The Fan. Morning show host Gregg Giannotti joins us. Greg, Zach Gelb here, Temple Sports Hour. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you.
Well, it's always great to hear your voice going back to your days at WFAN, and now you're a stud up in Pittsburgh. And I actually thought about you this weekend. I'm sitting in Orchard Park at the Buffalo Bills-Patriot game because, as you know, I'm a big-time Pats fan, and the Pittsburgh Marching Band came on the field. Why in the world is the Pittsburgh Marching Band in Buffalo?
You know, I don't know. That's a great question. I'll try to find out for you, and then I'll get back to you so we can solve that mystery.
Well, I know you're the sideline reporter for the Pittsburgh Panthers game. The Owls are making their return to the Big East. They play the Panthers towards the end of the month. Give me a little preview of this Panthers team.
Well, they have finally figured it out after 2 brutal weeks. You know, they started off the season losing to Youngstown State at home. Then they went to Cincinnati on national TV and got smoked. And then they figured it out at home against Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech has looked pretty weak since then, even losing to Cincinnati themselves. And then they came back after that Virginia Tech win and backed it up and pushed around a really weak Gardner-Webb team. They've got Syracuse on Friday. Their offense seems to be clicking. They look like a different team, both sides of the ball, offensive and defensively, from those first 2 weeks to the last 2 wins. Tino Sinceri, the quarterback, seems like he's settling in. Ray Graham and Russell Shell, 2 big-time backs that can get some things done. And Mike Shanahan, wide receiver, has had 2 monster games. And the defense right now, they had Aaron Donald have a little bit of a knee injury, their big-time defensive tackle that has always been a mainstay there. He's coming back for Syracuse. If he can stay healthy and that defense can play like it has, coupled with this new Paul Chryst offense, he's come in and gone back to pro style after Todd Graham came in and tried to run a spread here. Yeah, they could be dangerous, but Pitt's shown in the past they could look really good one week and then kind of let you down with a stinker the next. So I'm very curious to see how they come out against a 1-3 Syracuse team on Friday night.
Now, I know you love the Pittsburgh area and you're hosting Morning Drive on 93.7 The Fan, but it's not New York, and you're very talented, and you deserve to be back in New York. And I was actually talking about this the other day with a friend from the New York area. We were actually talking this in between classes, and we said Giannotti would be the perfect person to get back to New York once Mike Francesa retires, either in the 10-to-1 shift or maybe your old partners, Joe and Evan, they get bumped up to 1 to 6:30, and you do 10-to-1. Have you ever thought about making a return to New York once Big Mike retires?
Well, that's very nice that you say all that stuff. And, of course, you dream of it, and that's the station I grew up at. That's the station I grew up listening to. And you think about the future, and that ultimately is a tremendous place to be. But, you know, in this business, I think that, you know, us younger guys, I know I'm a little bit older than you are, but still, you fall in that anywhere from 18 to 35 I'll consider young in this business. I think sometimes the patience isn't there for everybody. You need to realize that it's great to have a job. It's great to have a job in Morning Drive, and you want to make sure you do the best you can every single day and not think so much about what's next, because if you get caught up in that, then you're dropping the ball in what the present is, and then maybe you don't get to that next step because you're focused on it too much. So, yeah, of course I think about it because I got in this business because of WFAN, and to host shows there part-time, to have been a producer there, to have all those relationships is something that means so much to me. And you know, maybe down the road I'll be lucky enough to get back there. But you know, I have a spectacular job right now, and I couldn't be happier being on in such a passionate sports town and in Morning Drive, no less.
So did Leppy, my good friend, and your agent Mark Lepselter, did he negotiate an opt-out clause in case if WFAN comes calling?
That's very funny. You know, I leave all that stuff up to him, but I'm sure with all his business savvy, he knows what he's doing.
We're talking to Gregg Giannotti, 93.7 The Fan morning show host, longtime producer of the Joe and Evan Show up in WFAN in New York. Temple Sports Hour, WHIP, 215-204-9449 is the number to call to hang with us. Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, and Rashard Mendenhall, they're expected all to be back this week. What can we expect from those 3 players?
You know, that's a great question, and Mike Tomlin says that he expects those guys to be back, but, you know, who really knows at this point with James Harrison? I would expect Polamalu and Rashard Mendenhall to play and to have a pretty extensive playing time against the Eagles. However, James Harrison, I mean, this is something that's been going on for months and months and months, and every time the guy tests that knee, something happens. He had a setback, it blows up, he's not feeling right, so I wouldn't be so sure that James Harrison plays. And then yesterday, Mike Tomlin didn't even give any insight to how his knee responded from that practice that they went through on Monday. So to me, I'm not sure what you're going to out of James Harrison. Now, Troy Polamalu's been dealing with that calf. Rashard Mendenhall we haven't seen since his knee injury. So it's really, really a good question what you expect. You're not going to get two defensive players of the year in their prime, that's for sure, in Polamalu and Harrison. And I would be very surprised if Rashard Mendenhall comes back and looks like a 1,200-yard back right away, and he scampers for a 65-yard touchdown. They need these guys back, though, because Chris Carter, Jason Worlds, the two guys that have been filling in for James Harrison, have not played all that well. And Ryan Mundy, who's been filling in both for Ryan Clark out in Denver when Clark couldn't play, and then Troy Polamalu the last couple of weeks, he's a great guy. He's a local Pittsburgh guy, and everybody loves him, but he's not Troy Polamalu, and he's not Ryan Clark, and he's been playing below the line. So if those guys come back, even if they're not completely themselves, that should give a boost to a defense that hasn't played all that well the first 2 out of 3 weeks.
Harrison, he's an excellent talent, but I'll tell you this, he just can't keep his mouth shut. He kind of reminds me of Deshaun Jackson here with the Philadelphia Eagles. Those two guys, they're real two loudmouths, Jackson and Harrison.
Absolutely, and James Harrison, I think, likes that. I think he likes that role. He posed on that Men's Journal magazine with his shirt off and 2 handguns. And
leave that to Brady and Tebow.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, if you think about all the things that he said, Roger Goodell and it killing the league and all of this stuff, I mean, he loves it. I think he loves playing the bad guy, but there comes a point where you need to just take a step back, play your game, stop talking so much about how much he hates the league and the rules and how he's going to retire and all of this. And it's kind of funny, though. He doesn't run his mouth when he's not playing games. When he goes out there, makes big tackles, makes big plays, I don't think Steeler fans really worry about what he's saying. They just want to see him out there on the field, and that's something that we haven't seen this season at all.
This Steelers defense, they have a tough task this week going up against Michael Vick and LaShawn McCoy. There was a lot of diversity displayed in that Giants victory. McCoy finally got a few more carries. He rushed for over 100 yards. Michael Vick limited the turnovers, didn't throw an interception compared to previous weeks. Talk about the Steelers defense containing both Vick and McCoy.
Well, that's going to be a very, very tough task, and I feel better about them containing Michael Vick than I do LaShawn McCoy. And this Steelers defense, there's something you could count on with them, and that was stopping the run every week. And they haven't been able to do that so much. Now, that Denver game, the numbers didn't look like they got destroyed on the ground, but in the second half, they couldn't come up with that big stop on the ground that they needed to. And then last week, Darren McFadden goes for a huge gain and a touchdown, and they just don't look like the same defense on the ground. I'm more worried about LaShawn McCoy, who, of course, is a Pitt guy, and they're very familiar with him here. Him going off, and maybe Deshaun Jackson going off with a big play, because that's another thing the Steelers defense is doing that they never did in the past, giving up that huge play. That was a signature of this LeBeau defense, never giving up that big play. I'm more worried about that than Michael Vick scampering, or even Michael Vick sitting in the pocket and picking apart this defense. There's a certain type of quarterback that really hurts that Steelers defense, and the Michael Vick I've seen this year is not that guy. Now, in the 2 previous times that Vick has played the Steelers, he's looked great, but I think this is a different Michael Vick than they saw several years ago.
The way you have a close game up against the Eagles, because we've seen a bunch of fumbles forced this year, interceptions, the Eagles still been able to get the victory, is you have to force those fumbles and get those interceptions. Do you see anything from this defense in previous games which alludes to the fact that they're going to have these turnovers come Sunday at 1 o'clock?
No, not at all. There has been one interception.
Which is so odd, because in Pittsburgh, I'm a Patriot fan, and watching Pittsburgh all these years, you just see them making the big play, getting turnovers, interceptions, and all that.
Yeah, right, and that's something that they focused on this year, and they said we need to get more pressure, and we need to turn the football over, because we didn't do that last year when they were able to do that in 2010, and of course they went to the Super Bowl and lost that year to the Green Bay Packers, and we've seen that so many times in their Super Bowl year of 05 and 08. Over the years, they've been able to do that. They didn't do it all last year, and they haven't done it this year, and that, of course, has a lot to do with not a lot of pressure because James Harrison's not there. That affects the way Lamar Woodley plays. Troy Polamalu's been out a little bit. So, I mean, that's been a factor. Could this week change if those guys play? Yeah, absolutely. And remember another thing. The Steelers at home are a different team than they are on the road. This is a team that went 7-1 last year at Heinz Field. The only game that they lost was a 92-yard drive in the fourth quarter by Joe Flacco, and the Ravens basically won the division that day at Heinz Field. The one time they looked very good this season in 2012, They beat the New York Jets at home, and they played poorly on the road. Even in wins last year on the road, they have not looked like a good football team. So at home, anything can happen with the Steelers. If they turn the football over 4 times in this game and look like the old Steelers defense, I wouldn't be surprised. However, their play on the road, especially defensively, if they had an effort like that on the road, then that would surprise me.
Zach Gelb here on WHIP talking to the morning show host up in Pittsburgh, 93.7 The Fan, Gregg Giannotti. And Greg, you look at these two quarterbacks, Michael Vick and Ben Roethlisberger. Say what you want about them two, but they're two tough guys. Vick steps up in the pocket all the time. He's constantly giving up his body when he's on the run. And then you look at Ben Roethlisberger, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He always steps up in the pocket and takes the big hit. These two quarterbacks are two tough guys.
Yeah, they are, but Ben generally stays a lot more healthy than Michael Vick does. And Ben Roethlisberger,
True.
He's a guy who had a high ankle sprain last year, really hurt this team's chances to win that division, to get a bye, to really put themselves in a position to go on to win another championship. Yeah, I can't put Michael Vick in the same class as Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh, I agree.
In any sort of conversation. But, yeah, these guys can, of course, extend plays, make that play, put something on a highlight reel, and that's something the Steelers have to worry about a little bit. But like I said, I'm not so worried about Michael Vick making that huge play in this game. And it's funny what a difference a week makes where the Eagles were a very sloppy 2-1, and you hear rumors about, well, maybe if he goes out and plays poorly against the Giants, they're going to bench Michael Vick, and now all of a sudden, we're back talking about a 3-1 football team and how Vick could put this team on his back and all of that. If the Eagles win this game, it's going to come from pressure from their great defensive ends. It's going to come from Shady McCoy doing his thing on the ground, and it's going to come from that Steelers defense just overall looking like a subpar unit that we've seen in their couple of losses this year so far.
You hear all this dream team dynasty talk from the Eagles, and to be honest, I don't see the Eagles getting to the Super Bowl this year. And just being new to this town, you get one win and everyone's saying we're going to the Super Bowl, and then you get one loss and everyone's saying fire Andy Reid, get rid of Michael Vick, bring in Nick Foles. So you're exactly right. But looking at your quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, this Eagles defense has been awesome this year, so it's imperative to protect Big Ben this week. Break down the matchup between the Steelers' offensive line and the Eagles' pass rushers.
Well, one thing that really intrigues me about this Eagles defense is the fact that they keep guys fresh, and they are moving guys in and out, and they're making sure that they have a lot of substitutions and different looks in order to confuse offenses rather. And that's where I think that Ben Roethlisberger needs to run a no-huddle, and he also needs to run a hurry-up no-huddle offense in order to keep some of those guys on the field so they can't do their thing and Juan Castillo wants to do with keeping these guys fresh and rotating those defensive linemen. And I think that Ben Roethlisberger is a guy who really, really does well and better than normal when he's calling his own plays, when he's moving along, when he gets in the rhythm of the game. And it's not like he's a bad quarterback when he huddles up and he thinks about it, but he just seems like he's more in the rhythm of the game when he's calling his own plays and they're moving the football. So I think that is a key. And Ben has been great. You cannot blame him for any of these losses. Yeah, he threw a pick six Sunday night, week 1, in Denver, and that was a bad one. But he couldn't have been any better in Oakland. I mean, that was basically, I know he had an opportunity to drive the team down the field and get a field goal at the end, but he was damn near perfect in that game. It was just the defense and a couple of fumbles that hurt the Steelers. So, I think that if Ben can run that hurry up, if he can continue to get the ball to Heath Miller like he's done, and he gets a big play out of one of those two wide receivers in Wallace or Brown, and keeps this momentum going offensively, they'll be fine. What the Steelers need to worry about is their run game. They're ranked 31st in the league running the football. Rashard Mendenhall, can he fix that? We're going to see, but it also could be an offensive line issue where there's just nowhere to run. So I'm very curious to see how they handle that because their run offense has been putrid.
To me, this is going to be a close game. It always seems like when the Eagles and the Steelers get together, it's always a good competitive football game, tough game as well. Do the Steelers get back on track this week? They get the victory?
I think so, and sometimes you need to look big picture with some of these teams, and I cannot see the Steelers going 1-3 to start the season. They're coming off a bye week. They're at home. They play very well at home. The Eagles have gotten some good luck in some of these games, have played poorly, and then come back in the fourth quarter. I don't see that happening at home. If this game's at the Link and they're going to Philadelphia, I give the Steelers a really slim chance of winning that game. But coming off a bye, they had to sit on this Raiders loss now for a couple of weeks. They're going to come out, and I think they're going to win this game. I think the defense looks a lot better, and some of these problems that the Steelers have had in their first 3 games, at least for 1 week, it'll be cured. I think they'll run the football a little better. I think the defense plays a little bit better. I'm not so sure if this is a team that could put itself in a position to win the AFC North this year, especially with the 3-1 starts with the Ravens and the Bengals. But I think the Steelers win this one, and I think they look like the team they want to be, at least for a week.
Now, Greg, in previous interviews that I've done with you, towards the end of the interview, I made you imitate Joe Beningo, but I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball at you here.
Okay.
Give me Tom Coughlin after Sunday Night Football's loss to the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't want to talk about it, Zach. Listen, I told you, we're moving on. We want to get points in the green zone. Unfortunately, a field goal kicker doesn't make a kick. You know, I thought I liked you, kid. You know, you were doing that show online. I used to sit there and watch you, sit in your room with the bobbleheads, and now you go to Philadelphia and you turn into a jerk. Is this what you want to be? You want to be a jerk on the radio like some of these other guys that they got at those radio stations there in Philadelphia? Smarten up.
Greg, always a pleasure to join you. It's always great when you come on with us. Have a great weekend. I appreciate it, my man.
Anytime, Zach. Best of luck. We'll talk to you soon.